Today, we will be discussing a pressing issue in the North American scene. That being, if evil geniuses should be removed from the Valorant Partner Program. Now, there's a lot to discuss, so let's get to it. If you are new to professional Valorant, then let me introduce it to you. So, what is Valorant? Valorant is a 5 vs 5 ability based first person shooter. Because of its popularity, a budding esports league has formed, which is headed by Riot Games, the organization that created this popular game. As its popularity grew, Riot wanted to develop a structured environment where their esports could thrive. That's when they created the Valorant Partner Program. In this program, 10 teams are selected from each of the 4 regions, which are the Americas, EMEA, the Pacific region, and the newest one, China, with one team being added every year through the Ascension tournament. But we'll discuss that another time. With this program, they are allowed to add and remove teams essentially whenever they want. And in this first year of the partner program, they have not done so yet. At least not yet. Enter evil geniuses. From the start, they were a controversial addition to the league, to say the least. Many people believe that another organization should have gotten their spot. In fact, there are speculations that they only got the spot because a different organization, G2, were removed from the league because of a controversy with their CEO being spotted partying with a controversial internet personality, that being Andrew Tate. But this is mostly speculation because it could have been any of the partner teams that got G2 spot, but I digress. They started the season as one of the worst teams in the league, losing 4 of their first 5 games. Many people consider them the clowns of North America, and rightly so. Then they made a massive change to their roster, removing their veteran player BCJ for an up-and-coming player who never really played in any significant tournaments prior to this, that being Demon 1. Although the change seemed questionable at the time, this decision actually helped propel them to success. They won their next 3 games and barely clinched a spot in playoffs. In the playoffs, they were able to do good enough to qualify for both of the 2 major tournaments. First one being Masters Tokyo, a moderately important mid-season tournament, but importantly, they qualified for Championship in LA. Although they were underdogs, they managed to defy all expectations and somehow they placed second at Masters Tokyo. But this was not good enough for them. At championships, they ended up winning the entire tournament, and they definitely cemented their place in the history books as one of the greatest teams ever. So what is the controversy with evil geniuses? After all, they just won the World Championships. What could go wrong? Well, to start off, after the team won this tournament, many of the players expected their pay to rise due to their new status as world champions, or at least stay the same. But to our surprise, and theirs, they ended up getting a pay cut. Not a small one. They were offered the minimum salary, which was almost half of what they were currently being paid. And when they tried to leave to go to other teams that offered them far more money, they couldn't, because they were held in something called contract jail, which is when a player is not allowed to leave a team because the organization refuses to let them go. Because of their relatively biased contracts, they are allowed to do this. As a result, everyone on the team wanted to leave, but they just couldn't. Eventually, most of them were able to leave the team with the help of other teams buying out their contracts, which was not cheap, or their contracts straight up ending. As a result, their team was completely different from the world champion winning team. They only had 1 player remaining from that team. This situation left a pretty dark stain on their reputation, but this isn't even the only controversy that is causing people to demand their removal from the league. In the past year, they have laid many of their employees off and are currently working with a skeleton crew of people. Another red flag is that they have been leaving immensely popular esports such as League of Legends, which is a game that Riot owns, and CSGO, another popular 5 versus 5 shooter. This means that Valorant is their only remaining esports. Lastly, they are facing lawsuits for fraud, deceit, breach of contract, and far more. This strains both their reputation as well as their financial well being due to the high legal costs they have incurred. All these things make EG not an ideal partner, to say the least. Many people are questioning whether EG is a sustainable partner for the league, or whether their actions are harmful to the environment that they're trying to create for the Valorant League. Many people see this as a straightforward decision. After all, there are so many reasons to want to remove them. But I would caution on making such a rash decision. This is the first year of Valorant's partner program, which means their actions will set a precedent towards the way that they run their league in the future. So when proposing the idea of the removal of evil geniuses, it is crucial to discuss what precedent this will set, and whether this precedent is something that you want to set. Let's imagine the effects of the removal of evil geniuses. The first thing that came to my mind is that you'll be setting a precedent that any organization can be removed at any time for any reason. What this can create is an unstable environment where teams are constantly coming in and out of the league. Riot Games made this league so that their Valorant esports scene would be stable. If they set this precedent, that'll be far from what it is. Organizations will feel that they need to constantly be competing for their spot in the league. This will likely cause chaos and internal dispute between the teams and Riot Games. Let me give you some examples to illustrate my point. If a team does terrible throughout this year, does that mean that they should get removed? Should they be given a second chance? Well, if there's another organization that has a better team, then they could take their spot, right? Is that the instability and uncertainty Riot wants for the teams in their league? Or let's say a team does extremely well in a year, but they don't quite bring in the viewership that other teams do. Riot could remove them for an organization with a larger fan base, but that would mean that teams not only have to constantly worry about being competitive, but they also need to constantly worry about having a popular fan base. Is this the environment that Riot wants to build? Now, I'm not arguing that EG should stay. I understand that there are many valid reasons to want their removal, but what I am saying is that Riot should make this decision with a degree of caution. They should not only consider what effects this will have in the next year, but also the effects that this will have in the next 10 years. Whatever decision that they do make, the effect will no doubt ripple through the entirety of the league's lifespan.